This is your reality check.
Hi everyone, and welcome to The Reality Check, the Canadian show that explores a wide range of controversies and curiosities using science and critical thinking. I am your host, Darren McKee, and with me, as usual, are Adam Gardner.
What's up, Cuboids?
Christina Roach.
Hey everyone.
And producer Pat.
Hi guys.
We have a great show for you today. I'm going to talk to you about Down syndrome strength, and we'll have a special announcement from the people in Toronto. But first, Adam, he's going to do a roundup of predictions that the crew made in early 2023.
Here we go.
So every year we do predictions. This year is going to be a little different. We're going to wrap up the prediction show, and we are going to retire the prediction segment.
Who could have seen that coming?
I don't know. Maybe we could have seen it coming. So Darren never liked the prediction show, and you know we're not going to be doing it again. And
yeah, well, he had a point.
As we always say, people can't predict the future, but a lot of people pretend to. So this is kind of a fun way to make it look like we could predict the future. Maybe if we cherry picked our predictions, we could make it look pretty amazing. But a lot of years we're actually pretty bad at it. So let's see how we did. Let's see how we did this year, and let's see what we missed. You know, there's some big things that we.
My prediction is we did as crappy as we did in previous years.
That's a good prediction. For next year, you'll have 1 point. All right, so movies. We always try to predict the top grossing movie. We use international numbers. Some people use domestic. I like to use international. So my prediction was that Avatar 2 would make more money in 2023, even though it was a 2022 release. So basically it's out for 2 weeks in 2022, and then the remainder of the box office it would make would be higher than any other movie of 2023. And it was. So I was right there. I get 1 single point. Although most of the box office top lists that I looked at don't include it. So it's really like top grossing box office movies that came out in 2023. Mm-hmm. So, you know, we can see what the number one was for that, but no one else guessed it. Christina, your guess was Super Mario Brothers, that the Super Mario Brothers movie would be number one.
It's not to me.
It was it was number 2. So number 3 if we can't Avatar 2.
Yeah, that's wild that it was actually number 2.
Yeah, I was surprised by the success. You know, it was a big deal. It was a great movie, but I think I didn't expect it to do that well. I didn't expect it to be as big a phenomenon as it was, but it was great.
Well, I think I said at the time, like the power of the Nintendo brand and how popular Super Mario is. I figured maybe, you know, internationally it would resonate. So
I understand that, but my logic would have been the brand was stronger when the first movie came out, and that did much worse.
Oh, yeah.
Much worse.
Mario Brothers was a huge deal, and I have a fondness for that movie, even though it's kind of terrible.
It had no competition.
Yeah. Pat's guess was that Fast X would be top grossing movie. It was the 5th highest grossing movie to come out in 2023, which is still pretty good, but not number 1. No one predicted what the top grossing movie that did come out in 2023 was, which is Barbie.
Yeah, no kidding.
I think at the beginning of the year, there wasn't a lot of buzz about that movie. It seemed very odd. It wasn't clear who that audience even was. It wasn't really a children's movie, but it was wildly successful.
Well, and I think people didn't expect the kind of screenplay.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So
well, it was
just word of mouth.
It was good. It was a good movie.
Yeah. Yeah. You said you went to see it with did you see it with your kids?
I saw it with my kids. We were all dressed in pink, and they. You know,
I guess it would be funny if Adam just went by himself to the movie theater.
But they, you know, they didn't understand a lot of like what was going on in the movie, but they still thought it was fun. You know, it's this crazy, colorful, like, oh, she's pretending to drink tea and there's no tea. That's funny. That's weird. You know?
I definitely didn't anticipate I won't say cross-marketing of Barbie and Oppenheimer, but that this became a thing and people like talking about exactly Barbenheimer. Yeah. It's like this is a married couple that, you know, celebrities like to focus on, or that paparazzi like to focus on for celebrities when they combine their names. But like, oh, okay, that's interesting. That's very rare that happens.
Yeah, where did Oppenheimer land, Adam?
So Oppenheimer was 3rd. Obviously, that was a very huge movie in more ways than one.
Caught on like a chain reaction.
Hey-o. Fourth highest grossing movie was Guardians of the Galaxy. That was the third Guardians of the Galaxy. So that's, that was the top MCU movie. Ant-Man 3 was 10th and The Marvels was 27th. So, obviously they didn't do as well as they've done in previous years. And fifth, as I mentioned, was Fast X, the fifth highest grossing movie to come out in 2023. So that doesn't count Avatar 2 in the top 5. Next, we had political predictions. There was no U.S. presidential election last year because it's going to be this year, but we kind of made predictions about the build-up to it. So we wanted to guess who would run. I said that Tucker Carlson would attempt to win the Republican primary. That has not happened.
Tucker Carlson.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, so that was my prediction. It was kind of a long shot. But now there's buzz about people that want him to be... what's that guy's name? There's people that want him to be Donald Trump's
vice
VP
president
choice, which is not gonna happen. But there's buzz about that.
Well, he secretly said he hated him. Not to say he wouldn't just pretend. But Tucker found his own streaming service, right? He'll be just fine.
Yeah. Anyway, it's weird, but some people that probably don't understand how politics work think that's possibly going to happen. So I no longer think he's going to run for president. Not in 2024, at least.
I think it's passed.
Yeah.
I mean, Trump just won the Iowa caucus. So.
Yeah. That wasn't there when I prepared the segment, but yeah, that's starting to happen. I also predicted that Joe Biden would be the Democratic candidate. That hasn't really been finalized, but he seems to be the one. No one's talking about him not being the guy in 2024. That's just kind of happening.
Hopefully someone older doesn't come and displace him. I have even more wisdom.
Pat predicted that there would not be an election in Canada. That was correct. Christina, you made 6 predictions.
I did?
Yeah, and this is where you got most of your points, to be honest.
Really?
You said Biden would be.
Tell.
You said Biden would be the front runner for the Democrats. Check. You said that DeSantis would be the Republican frontrunner. That doesn't seem to be true. Trump is currently polling better than DeSantis. Obviously, this Iowa thing happened. Nikki Haley is another that's around. I don't know if she's doing better than DeSantis, but she's in that same kind of...
I don't think she did in Iowa, but people thought she would do better than DeSantis.
I think she came third. Yeah.
She's polling well.
And that goes to show you polls,
I don't know. I don't like polls. I don't like to follow this stuff until I can't avoid it. So obviously we will be unable to avoid it later this year, unfortunately. Christina, you also said no Canadian election. You were correct on that. You said that we will start seeing Pierre Poilievre give Trudeau a run for his money. I guess that's true. I mean, he's just...
That's mostly true.
Yep, you get the point.
His video, his Apple video, got a lot of people really, oh, wow, look at this guy. He's eating an apple and telling it like it is.
Well, since you love movies, have you know this movie apple trope? That if you want to show a character having confidence on screen, they're usually eating an apple.
Oh,
and so you have Chris Pine while he's in Star Trek, he's eating an apple. It's like, I don't care what's up. I'm just going to chew it.
Kobayashi Maru.
Exactly. There's a couple different things. Like, I'm eating an apple. I'm so confident.
Cool.
I don't even need to not eat.
Oh, well, obviously Pierre Poilievre was paying attention to that. So, this was a good one, Christina. You predicted that a new country would join NATO, point, and that it would be Finland, point. Good job on that.
Wow.
Way to finish. Well.
So next we have sports predictions. I do not make sports predictions.
That's not a prediction.
I didn't do so good.
No. Pat, you made 3 predictions. You said Canada would win the Women's World Cup. It looks like Spain won. Canada beat Ireland but lost to Australia and didn't move on from the first round. That sound accurate? You said the Boston Bruins would win the Stanley Cup. Stanley Cup was won by the Vegas Golden Knights. Boston were the Atlantic champions, but they didn't make it to the finals and were beat by Florida. You also said that the Celtics would win the NBA championship, and it was the Denver Nuggets. Christina, you predicted that the Wrexham Football Club would get a promotion from the EFL National League to the EFL League. I don't know exactly what that means, but on Wikipedia it said, before being promoted as champions to the 2022-23 National League, and they play in the EFL League 2. So, yes, I think you were right with that. A very specific prediction.
They got a promotion. Let's move on.
Good job. Ryan Reynolds. That's the one Ryan Reynolds runs or
Yeah,
something?
and Robin
Yes.
McElhenney
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
from
my
It's
team.
Always Sunny in
Oh,
Philadelphia.
yeah, he's great. In basketball, you predicted that the Boston Celtics would play versus the Grizzlies in the final, and it was Denver Nuggets versus Miami Heat, so incorrect on those. You said the Celtics would win, which was also incorrect. Next, we made some COVID predictions. You guys remember COVID? That was like a thing we were still talking about in early 2023.
Yeah, it's wild.
So my prediction was that one of the restrictions which had been removed would be returning at one point in 2023, and then I got really specific into what that meant, but it didn't happen. So there were no like mask mandates or vaccination proof or anything like that that came back. Nothing got more strict. I predicted that mask mandates would remain in hospitals and doctors' offices where I live until the end of 2023, and they don't seem to be doing that anymore.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, I don't know what it's like in Ontario, but in Quebec, like you go into the hospital and there's like a handwritten sign that says wear a mask, and like no one's wearing a mask. It's like it's not a thing anymore.
I got a tattoo. Was it? I can't remember. It wasn't that long ago. It was in 2023.
Mm-hmm.
But everyone masked. Like I had to wear a mask. Like it's interesting. There's some places that still abide by that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, needles piercing skin seems like a place to have more masks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But even throughout 2023, it's changed a lot. Like that was loosened throughout this past year.
Yeah, it's largely suggestive, although when I went to, say, like, a doctor's office, like, here's your mask.
Yeah.
Put this
Yeah,
on.
if I go to the hospital, they will give me one.
Yes, exactly. And they expect you to wear theirs. They don't trust yours for obvious reasons.
I predicted that I would be working at least one day a week in the office at the end of 2023, not counting vacation. So this was true for me, and I have been going into the office, but I did not predict that there's this IT exception. So a lot of the staff that I work with, they don't actually have to come in anymore. So they basically all went home. So I go into a mostly empty office most days.
Great policy.
It's like, yeah, it's super useful to go in and do Teams call with people that are at home.
That seems to be the norm. Like a lot of people I know have not gone back to work. Even, because as you guys know, I work in the music industry. People will go in once, twice a week kind of thing,
Yeah.
3 times maybe at some places. But I think this is here to stay.
Yeah, it sounds like at least hybrid's going to be around for maybe ever. I predicted I would get COVID again. I did not. I was sick over Christmas. I took 5 COVID tests and never tested positive, so it wasn't that. Pat, you predicted that there would be another large surge in COVID cases earlier in the year and that would slow down the return to work. And then you also said that COVID would continue to be normalized. So that's 2 predictions. I don't think the first is true. I kind of looked at a graph of like cases over the year for, the US, Canada, and a bunch of countries. And that wasn't really the case. There's a bit of a peak in the summer and again in December. It doesn't seem to have impacted return to work. Like my return to work proceeded as we had planned when we were talking about it, except they delayed by like 1 week because some guy decided to visit Canada. I'll give you a point about it being normalized. I think like people are just way more chill about it now even than they were a year ago.
Agreed.
Christina, you said that some past restriction would come back and haunt us. And, as I mentioned, for mine, that didn't happen. And you said that you would continue to evade getting COVID. And if I understand correctly, that is the case. You've still not gotten
As
it.
far as I know, yeah.
Good job not getting sick.
I actually really haven't gotten sick at all. A Pat in a really long time.
Neither have I.
Yeah.
I was telling myself that like 3 weeks ago, and then I got sick. It wasn't too bad.
I'm 5 shots in, right? I'm 5 vaccines in, so.
Science and tech predictions. So I brought back my old classic. A solar event will knock out a significant amount of infrastructure and cause damage to computers on half of the planet facing the sun. At the time, this didn't happen. But I did talk about the Carrington event. I think I was on this year, on the show this year. I predicted that someone would marry a chat bot, right? So Japanese people had been married DS games before and weird things like that. Rosanna Ramos married Aaron Cartal, who's an AI chatbot from Replica.
Wow.
So, obviously it's not like a legal thing.
Unbelievable.
I guess my invitation was lost in the email.
Are you one of Aaron's friends or one of Rosanna's friends?
I think I've said too much.
I predicted there would be a scandal where a work of art, a work of fiction, a piece of music, or a piece of nonfiction would be passed off as being human-made and discovered to have been made by AI. This didn't happen. I think it probably could have, but it didn't happen like in a way that I thought was significant or a big scandal.
Really? People thought that Drake and Weeknd song was really them.
So I'm not sure quite with the year, but there's two art-related things that happened. One is that a human submitted a piece of human-made art, and it was rejected because people didn't believe it was human-made.
That's funny.
But separately, someone gave AI art, and it won a competition. So this did happen.
Maybe.
And the person did it as a point, not to say like,
oh yeah,
look,
it was
I fooled
a school
you.
thing, wasn't it?
I think you should just get the point.
I will gladly take the point. I do remember hearing about that, Darren, and I wasn't thinking about it when I was wrapping this up. I didn't really search for it. I was just like, I don't remember seeing that.
It's in my book. That's why I remember it.
Oh, it's a good book.
Sorry, Darren, what's that book called again?
Oh, Uncontrollable. You can find it on Amazon.
Oh,
All right.
I think you can also get it on Apple as an Apple audiobook as well.
I believe that's true.
Okay.
Yes. It has so many predictions that weren't made. It's really full of them.
Cristina, you predicted that OpenAI would release GPT-4 and that Darren would find it delightful. Darren found it so delightful that he wrote a book on it.
You wrote a book.
I think delightful doesn't quite get her the half point. Interesting, delightful, and concerning.
Yes.
Well, I guess you didn't say only delightful.
Pat, you predicted that SpaceX's Starship would reach orbit this year. So there was a test flight in April that did not reach orbit before being destroyed. Another flight in November also failed to reach orbit due to engine failure.
Wah, wah, wah.
Maybe 2024.
Just to show the level of research here, I just looked it up. The art thing was in 2022.
Oh, shit.
So you were both wrong
Okay.
and correct. Now, if you said it would happen in 2023, maybe it
Like
didn't.
Schrodinger's cat.
But it already did happen
It
in
had
the world.
happened before I even made the prediction.
Right, which is just showing how fast AI stuff happens. Where something's already happened, you innocently made a prediction for something that's already happened. And then, as I said, it's possible it didn't happen again. So you have a superposition of both point and no point.
Well, when I made the AI, the marrying chatbot prediction, I was like, maybe someone already did this. I had to look it up.
Yeah.
And it hadn't happened yet, even though people married Diaz games. More general predictions. I predicted that McDonald's would bring back their pizzas in the US or Canada. This didn't happen. I don't know. It was a long shot. It didn't happen. I predicted that the Sailor Moon Cosmos movies would be released on June 9th and 30th in Japan, as planned, making them the
Guess
first...
you were bang on.
the first Sailor Moon Crystal story arcs to be released on their original schedule. So this was a bit of a long shot prediction because there's always been delays in the past for Sailor Moon Crystal. And I was right. They were released on those particular days.
Shocking.
Still not released internationally. I imported the Blu-ray from Japan at great expense. They are very great movies.
Well, I think you should be given some accolades for the specificity. Well, it's true. The more specific you are, usually the harder it is to be correct. And that seems pretty specific.
It is.
Extra
Agreed.
half
Well
point.
done,
It
Adam.
is an area of expertise of mine.
You super forecaster in the Sailor Moon domain.
Speaking of specific things, I predicted that a member of the bridge crew from Star Trek The Next Generation would be killed off in the 3rd season of Star Trek Picard. I don't want to get into specifics and spoilers, but that is true. So if you think that it's not true, you can write to me and I'll tell you what I mean and why that's true, but it is true.
I hope one person didn't just rage quit our show.
Yeah, it'd be like, what? Maybe stop, think about it before you write the email. You might realize I'm right. If not, send me an email or a DM or a message or whatever, and I'll be like, yeah, so and so. Oh yeah. Okay.
Also, was that prediction really a stretch? Is anyone going to be surprised that happens on the show?
Why? That's why I didn't think it was a stretch. That's why I made it.
Hey, someone predicted Biden was going to be the front runner, Christina. So let's give people the points where they get them, huh?
I predict someone will buy apples in 2023.
Did you mean an apple, a product, or apples? Look, whatever. It doesn't matter.
It was about the Pierre Polyev thing. Christina predicted that the Canadian government would decriminalize possession of small amounts of narcotics. I feel I would have heard about this if it happened. I don't think this happened.
Did you mean like mushrooms, Christine, or something else?
It was across the board, I believe. Your prediction was for
Like outside of marijuana, because there was something on the table in Vancouver. And I mean, all of this is in the spirit of not putting people in jail that
Right.
shouldn't be in jail. And people who have addiction problems. So yeah, it didn't happen.
No. Although there
busy.
are some places where I believe you can just go buy mushrooms, and that seems illegal at the moment, but they still exist. So
There's a place down the street from
100%.
us, and it's called Shroom something. It's just
I think it's called magic mushroom.
yes.
crazy like
no.
that.
Yes, I walk by a store. I'm like, wow, the outside is just fully color. There's no windows, right? And it says mushrooms on the outside. You're like, how does this work? Isn't this just illegal? I know the cops are like,
So
hello.
subtle.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, in a future segment that we may record today about copyright, like I think the issue is not always what the law is, but the issue is what gets enforced, right? So
Yes.
when we talk about criminalization, I think there's a lot of types of drug use that they're not really enforcing, and there are other drugs that they will be enforced. They will enforce more, right?
And Darren, this happened with marijuana.
Yeah.
Because there were pop-up shops, everybody knew where they were, and then all of a sudden the cops would raid one and make a statement, but then they wouldn't touch the other ones, and then you could always, and now that's what's happening with, at least in Toronto, that's what's happening with the mushroom.
Right. So I was trying
Magic
to
mushrooms, let's be clear, we're not talking
portobellos. Yeah, I was trying to hint that maybe you should get like a 1/10 of a point, because although it is not officially decriminalized, it could be de facto slightly deprioritized to the point
I'll
where
take it.
Yeah.
Not sure what the spreadsheet would do with that.
I'm not sure what that would help. 1/10 of a
Hey, if she ends up being tied with one of you guys, and it's what 1/10 of a point.
Good point. Darren with the logic.
Darren, the guy who never made predictions, chiming in with the cheap seats.
Pat predicted that Zelensky would win a Nobel Peace Prize, and that
Yeah.
he would be a wartime recipient because the war
I
would not be over.
failed
So he,
completely on that. Yeah.
Did you think that you thought the war would be over by then?
No, I said it would still be happening.
Right.
So to wrap up, I made 13 predictions. I got 5 correct. 38%. Worse than chance. Good job. Pat made 10 predictions. 2 were correct. Good job, Pat. It's 20%. Christina, you made 14 predictions. You got 7 or 7.1 correct. So 50%. That's not bad.
That's pretty good.
I'm psychic.
So a lot better
proven.
than the rest of us, for sure. Better than Darren.
I'm undefined in this analysis.
Yes, 0 divided by 0.
As you guys know, you have the segment to show that you can just retrospectively say, look what we did. You focus on the hits and not on the misses and so on. But I even think giving a percentage is also some quirky math that's going on, right? Because you said worse than chance. You're like, well, wait a minute.
Yeah, they weren't 50-50 predictions anyway.
Well,
Most
that's it.
of them were.
That's exactly right. So chance would have been perhaps much, much less. It may be even incoherent.
Of all the humans on Earth, which one is going to be the Democratic nominee? Who would have thought it was Joe Biden? It's a 1 in 8 billion chance. That's crazy. So that will be our final predictions segment, and I hope you have enjoyed it. And next year, we'll just have a normal show.
We'll just have retrodictions. Say this is what happened.
We'll just lie. We'll be like last year. I predicted all these things that did happen, and that's what psychics.
We'll record a future segment and not air it until next year. Yeah. Thanks, Adam, for another fun roundup. Over the holidays, aside from relaxation and overeating, there tend to be various conversations with family and friends in which something is said as if it were true, but in fact may not be. In short, at a social gathering, we've all been there. Someone says something, you're like, I don't know if that's quite correct. Someone was referencing a relative of theirs with Down syndrome and said that this person was very strong. And someone else commented and reinforced this idea that people with Down syndrome are very strong. But is this true? In short, no. We must always keep in mind that we're dealing with averages in this case, and there are likely many people with Down syndrome that are stronger than those that do not have it. But the truth is, in general, a trend, and this trend is not correct.
I've never heard this. It's what a weird...
Yeah, it's...
I've 100% heard that.
Yes.
I've absolutely heard this.
Yes, so have I. A very brief overview is that Down syndrome, now some people say Downs syndrome, but I'm going to say Down syndrome because I think that's more proper usage at the moment, is a genetic disorder caused by having an extra copy, a third copy, of chromosome 21. This happens by chance and doesn't appear to be due to any behavioral or environmental factors, but the age of the mother at birth correlates with increased prevalence, from less than 0.1% in a 20-year-old mother to 3% in those of age 45.
2% is high.
And then, like, as a percentage points, that's a huge increase, right? Down syndrome is associated with intellectual disability, both mild and moderate, developmental delays, and some physical features. Now, many people with Down syndrome are quite happy and optimistic, and may even have great resilience, but I couldn't find any reliable evidence that they are atypically strong. If anything, those with Down syndrome may have weaker muscles and bones, which make them less strong overall. A final insight to share that highlights the complexity is that low muscle tone in some clinical situations may not be the same as low muscle tone when we think about ourselves going to the gym or weightlifting. And this is just a full-on quote from Wikipedia. The low muscle tone associated with hypotonia must not be confused with low muscle strength, or the definition commonly used in bodybuilding. Neurologic muscle tone is a manifestation of periodic action potentials from motor neurons. As it is an intrinsic property of the nervous system, it cannot be changed through voluntary control, exercise, or diet. This is a quote within a quote here. True muscle tone is the inherent ability of the muscle to respond to a stretch. For example, quickly straightening the flexed elbow of an unsuspecting child with normal tone will cause their biceps to contract in response. This is automatic protection against possible injury. When the perceived danger is past, which the brain figures out once the stimulus is removed, the muscle relaxes and returns to its normal resting state. The child with low tone has muscles that are slow to initiate a muscle contraction, contract very slowly in response to a stimulus, and cannot maintain a contraction for as long as his quote-unquote normal peers. Because these low-toned muscles do not fully contract before they again relax, muscle accommodates to the stimulus and so shuts down again, they remain loose and very stretchy, never realizing their full potential or maintaining a muscle contraction over time. I'll be honest, I had to read that more than once, but you're like, okay, these may not be quite the same sort of thing, but the point still stands. In summary, saying that people with Down syndrome are stronger than average is not supported by evidence.
Do you know where this came from, Darren? Like, why could you trace that back in your research?
No, I don't know historically. My guess might be just that, again, the brain works in quirky ways and people remember things that stand out in one way, not in others.
Right.
People may think people with Down syndrome have less strength than they expect. And then when they demonstrate average strength, that is perceived as greater strength. It could also be that perhaps someone with Down syndrome is being forced to do something, and it's hard to force a human to do something they don't want to do, holding them down for one thing or another. And people are just, well, that person's really strong. Like, well, children also can be very strong and resilient if you're trying to get them to do anything they don't want to do.
Yeah.
So my guess is sort of like some misperceptions there, or, perhaps there's someone who has Down syndrome who is quite strong, and then that just led to some peculiar perception.
Right.
I've certainly seen footage of one gentleman that has Down syndrome that works out, and huge guy, very strong, very impressive, very dedicated to the gym. So that's like one guy, but that kind of thing can contribute. I saw this guy with Down syndrome who was really fit, so therefore maybe it was because he has Down syndrome. No, I think he was just like a really hardworking, dedicated guy who trained a lot, and he's physically just as capable as being fit as anyone else. It's probably difficult to measure something like this because you may having Down syndrome may affect the person's lifestyle in a number of ways. Maybe they're more or less likely to be exercising, and that can be a contributing factor, right? But if the research shows no difference, it sounds like there isn't anything to it.
And now we turn to an important announcement from our lovely folks in Toronto.
So Pat made a decision months ago that he wanted to retire from TRC. As longtime listeners know, we're married, and although sad, I totally supported his decision. And quite frankly, once Darren, Adam, and I are done our part, Pat, the seamstress, quote unquote, still had to spend hours each weekend editing this labor of love we call the reality check. But I also quickly realized that it's been a good run for me too, and it would be good to Seinfeld out. So I'd like to say a few words I prepared. Very few words, I promise. I did a few guest segments early on. The first one was December 2008, and I talked about being a critical thinking mom and the dilemma of essentially lying to children about Santa Claus. Mm-hmm. But I didn't become an official TRC co-host until after Elon left in 2014. And it's honestly been a highlight of my life, especially alongside Pat. I've learned so much and I've made friends with people around the world that I would never have crossed paths with outside of doing this show. Notably, astrophysicist Dr. Stuart Robbins, who has become a dear friend and has come to visit and stay with us in Toronto. I mean, it's really awesome when there's some space news that you can just message your buddy, the astrophysicist, and go, what's going on here, right? I got to hang out with Dr. Jen Gunter when Bat Doc Ken Mill invited us to his home when she guested on his podcast. There's food scientist Stuart Fairmont, who is a gem of a human and science communicator. And then there's all the amazing experts in their fields, like Professor of Pediatrics and Allergy Specialist Dr. Dave Stukas, who were all so gracious with their time. And more special than that, Darren and Adam, the bond that we forged and all the things I've learned from both of you, and seeing Darren write his first book. Come on. That's crazy. So, okay, I'm going to stop because I'm getting choked up. But I know I joked with you guys last time we recorded when we were off mic. It will only be a matter of time before some celebrity will promote some BS wellness hack that involves putting some foreign object in your vagina, and I'll be infuriated and compelled to do a guest segment. So not goodbye for me, but yeah, I guess it's see you later. And just thank you to all the listeners. We love you and all the feedback and the email. And yeah, that's it for me.
Wow.
Top that, Pat.
This is really hard. Cristina said everything really well. I've been on the show since 2011, 2012, somewhere in there. I've edited pretty much every show except for a couple since then. It's been a real pleasure. It's been a pleasure to do the show. It's been a pleasure to do it with you, Adam, and do it with you, Darren, to have done it with Elon and to do it with my wife, Cristina. When you retire, you get really reflective, and it just felt like that was kind of the point that I needed to move on. So what I'll say is not goodbye, but see you soon, but not as soon as usual.
Well, thank you both so much. I mean, the show is obviously not going to be the same without you. And that, 10, 12-year run, respectively, is truly impressive. As listeners may or may not realize, it's a lot of work to put out a show. Yes. And sometimes people are interested in doing a segment here and there. Like, that's great. Hey, would you want to do that every week? And they're like, no? How about every month? Still no. That's too much work.
It's a lot.
And so to find wonderful, curious people who are interested in spreading the good word about bad misinformation and so on is wonderful, and and valuable contributions, especially Pat with his delightful games and making me feel both incompetent because I can't remember almost anything I've learned even when I win, and especially that one segment about there are more trees on Earth than stars in the Milky Way. That one is definitely stuck with me for sure.
Yeah.
And Christina's, again, so many wonderful segments. Yes, someone needs to be taking on Gwyneth Paltrow en masse, but I think you did some excellent ones, especially like say whether mothers so-called need to breastfeed or not. I think that was one of the biggest hits among all of our audience. Yeah. So
thanks, D.
Oh yeah, big sincere
DBC.
Big sincere thank you. And yes, we'll see you soon. It's not goodbye.
All right. Love you guys.
Yeah, love you. We're still keeping our messenger thread, right?
You're like, we've been blocked from access to lots of stuff all of a sudden.
the new TRC chat is me and Darren. So between memes, we're gonna have
exactly
TRC content. I just want to say thank you to both of you. Obviously, the main thing that makes me want to do this show is the time we spend together. It's not, obviously the research is fun and learning and things, but it is, it's chatting with you, all three of you, that makes me enjoy doing this show. And that's kept me doing this show for, 15 years, whatever that is. So thank you for everything. Pat, thank you a lot for all the editing, and I'm going to start to realize more and more just how difficult and how much work and how many hours that really takes. Well,
we're both blabbering over here, so.
Yeah. So I do hope to have you both back on at some point, and do enjoy your retirement from podcasting.
Yeah, and you guys make sure you keep everything posted. I think you guys are going to go as a duo for now until you figure out what you want to do.
That's exactly right. So in case listeners were concerned, the show will at least continue. Adam and I are going to see how we do, just the two of us, open to maybe different formats, different ideas. But at the moment, just
probably going to be some segments about AI.
It's like, why is this an AI Sailor Moon podcast? Look, we just thought it represented the interests of the entire crew.
Guys, I will have some cat segments from time to time. Okay, don't worry about it.
Fear not. Fear not.
Yeah, so not goodbye. See you soon. We love you guys.
Well, until next time, think better to act better.
Peace out, cuboids.
Stay classy, not smartassy.
I hope we talk soon.
And that's a wrap.
For show notes or to discuss this episode, visit our Facebook page and website at trcpodcast.com. For general inquiries or to send a topic or parody suggestion, email info@trcpodcast.com. Help support the show by leaving a review on iTunes and liking us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at TRC_podcast.
Outtakes.
No, good luck with editing this, Adam.
No, thank you.
What do you think, Pat?
I'm not editing the show.
That's right. Oh, wow. That's so funny.
Final
what's
swan
your
song.
advice?
Okay, let's redo it.
Okay.
That worked for me once, eating an apple. I'm not getting into it at all. But it once
We'll
worked
save
for
that
me.
for after the show.
Oh boy, it's TRC After Dark story there.
100%.
I was really into Magritte at the time.
Boy. You predicted it would be the Boston Celtics versus the Vancouver Grizzlies. Is Vancouver still? They're not in Vancouver.
No
Memphis.
Instead, Grizzlies here is my
Moved
brain
to
auto
Memphis.
completed.
Decades ago, Adam.
Really? Even I'm out of that loop.
Decades.
Where are they?
Decades ago.
2 decades?
Okay.
That's why
Yeah.
Canada gets behind the Raptors. It's the only Canadian.
I mean,
Basketball team.
the team that won the Stanley Cup is a team I didn't even know existed, so I don't even know.
The Vegas Knights?
Vegas. That's new, right?
One of the guys on that team is the biggest Alexis on Fire fan, and he has
no one cares.
he has a blazer, and the lining is all the Alexis on Fire logo. It's amazing. Okay, bye. Okay, go ahead.
No, they've actually won a couple of Stanley Cups.
Yeah.
Really? So they've been around
Yes.
for more than 1 year. Okay. I probably last year was like, these teams new.
That's great.
Yes.
I'll be fascinated to hear what your experience is editing this.
Yeah, it's going to be rough. It's going to be rough.
It's like a Christopher Nolan movie.
Well, this is always one of the hardest shows to edit, I imagine, right, Pat?
I'll have to do one of those inspirational posters for Adam.
Okay.
Hang in there.
One edit at a time.